Guys, I'm not someone who suffers with regular butt hurt unless it's that time of the month or whatever. But yeah, I know there's sort of dramas going on and people want to come over and include me in them for some reason. So yeah, please don't. But time out for a second. I wanted to address something because I've spoken to some of you about this before actually, and some of you are in a similar position. But for those in the cheap seats that seem to have a fascination with me having kids or not having kids. So I've always been very transparent with you about my life, where I can be. Obviously, you've got security to keep in mind, but where I can be. And I mentioned to you that I haven't had kids. Never really gone into detail as to why. I may have given you reasons in the past, but I've never really gone into detail as to why. And as I mentioned in the previous video, you get excluded from a lot of things and a lot of every argument, whether it be about tyres, the price of milk, food, or how fast you can go on a motorway, will always come down to I've got kids and you haven't, because it's like a race card, it's like a trump card. It's just a card that people will pull on you if you don't have kids. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things, and it's always the go-to. You don't have kids, therefore you don't understand. No, I don't. But unlike many people out there, I have empathy, and that empathy allows me to at least put myself in other people's shoes. Not the same thing, but I can do that. The other thing is as well is because it's nobody else's business, and because I didn't want to bring her into this, and I still don't, just because I haven't got a biological daughter. And again, I want to be careful what I say because I never wanted anybody else to be on here. Part of this, I've never mentioned them, but a stepdaughter that I brought up, as I said, I missed the first few years of her life, which but my dad didn't want to know her. Her mum was laying in bed, so I pretty much brought her up, and I absolutely loved the shit out of her. And no, she's not my biological daughter, but I absolutely she doted on me, but I don't think she realised I doted on her just as much. And it was an awesome relationship I had with I don't say her name, but I had with her. See, that's why I don't want to talk about her on camera. And no, whilst I may not have a biological daughter, she to me was my daughter. I wouldn't steal her from another dad, but he didn't want her. Like, even what I mean is, even when I was on the scene, he still didn't want her. He wouldn't even call her his daughter. Do you know what I mean? So when she started kind of calling me it, normally I would discourage it, right? But like, he never did kind of want to know. So it kind of that changed the rules for me. And I never asked her to do it. She just did, and it just we clicked. And again, there was things I missed out on, her being born, stuff like that. But she was a big deal to me. It still is, and will always be part of my life. Isn't that what kids are? Do I worry about her future? Do I worry about the future of my nephew, my nieces? Of course I do. Of course I do. We all do, don't we? We worry about our families, even the people who are older, because we can see some of the changes that are coming soon. Like my mum's still alive, stuff like that. Yeah, she may be older. Doesn't mean she deserves to have a door kicked down one day, does it? And people younger than me, whether they be in my family or outside of it, it's scary what's coming for people. And more than that is what you can do when you put yourself in other people's shoes is realize what growing up in all of this would have been like for us if we were that age, with the way that we used to be trying to grow up in all this mess. Jesus Christ, can you imagine? Like, even gender isn't something that it was already hard enough for people to come to terms with the fact that 1 minute they're boys and girls at a certain age, virtually no difference, and then suddenly everything changes without all the gender arguments and everything else that have been put into it. People have been put for a hell of a lot. Kids have been put for a hell of a lot, and then they got to then worry about all the other things that we already know they got to worry about. Yeah, I don't need to have a biological DNA daughter to have empathy or worry, concern. And you also don't need that to have that from a stepdaughter either. Again, I love her to pieces, but I never felt the need to bring her on to this podcast, as in her name or her presence, because you protect those which you care about. So, but I have mentioned her before, but I try and keep it brief, because again, I worry that there's a few people that will tell you this. I will deliberately forget names rather than have them buzzing around in my head. It's just easier for me, yeah? You want me to keep a secret, then don't tell it to me or tell me to forget it. And I can forget things, but I'm terrible if something's clittering around in there. So I try and get rid of all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and whilst, here's the other side, here's the other thing. If I could have had children, I would have done. There was a few decisions, and this is nobody else's business, but I'm willing to share. There was a few decisions that came into it. Okay, one, I didn't feel ready. I wondered if I was responsible enough. I think we all think that, right? I was worried that I wasn't monetarily sound enough. But again, maybe that's a common worry. And I was worried I didn't have myself together enough. But again, is that a common worry? Probably. I don't know. I did feel like I needed to be in a relationship that at least had a chance of surviving, which I was in. And kind of thought maybe it would happen. Sort of that didn't work out. But the main reasons were, as some of you know, I got the muscle wasting disease. Plus there's something else which I don't want to disclose on camera because it's just just too personal. But for those two reasons, it also meant it was now a medical risk. And I was already worried about bringing a consciousness into the world and suffering because of me and my thoughtlessness or my carelessness. And that was always the biggest worry for me. So the idea of bringing a child into the world that I hadn't fully tried at least to conceive all options. And I still wonder these days whether I should have taken the risk or not. But 50-50% percent chance of pass down of what I've got, not including the other thing, which again I don't want to talk about. But the other thing would be, again, if that was introduced as well, be a real bane on anybody's life. So that was the biggest thing, the medical aspect. If I couldn't be sure that my kid wouldn't be in the same kind of pain that I was in for the years I was in, then so those are sorry, it's hard to talk about sometimes because you've made these decisions and you try and pretend they don't bother you, but these are the reasons why I made some of the decisions I did, because it wasn't about me. It was about the future child. It was about the kid that I wanted, but I wasn't gonna. And maybe I froze myself out the market, if you like, but I wasn't going to have that kid under less than ideal circumstances, or far less than ideal circumstances. I wanted them to have a chance of being happy. I wanted them to have a chance in life. And when everything seemed like a disadvantage, I just felt that was wrong of me, especially knowing that I would be knowingly throwing a dice with suffering. I just didn't feel man enough to throw that dice. Rightly, wrongly, I felt it wasn't mine to throw. Thought I would just share. Catch you soon.